Research Turtle here. Today, we are diving into a massive geopolitical shift. We are looking at the Donroe Doctrine and the 2026-2027 strategic horizon. This isn't just policy. It's what analysts are calling the Re-Imperialization of the Western Hemisphere. Let's break down what is happening in this new era. It all started on January 3, 2026, in an event known as Operation Absolute Resolve. U.S. Special Forces extracted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from Caracas and brought him into U.S. custody. This wasn't just a regime change, it was a kinetic announcement of a new foreign policy era. The U.S. immediately installed a transitional government led by Delcy Rodriguez, signaling a move toward transactional sovereignty where oil interests outweigh democratic purity. This brings us to the core concept, the Donroe Doctrine. In 1823, the Monroe Doctrine was defensive, designed to prevent European recolonization, but the Donroe Doctrine of 2026 is fundamentally different. It is offensive and preemptive. Its goal is absolute resource and security primacy. We're seeing the rise of the Trump Corollary, which asserts the U.S. right to intervene whenever hemispheric resources or borders are threatened by external rivals. This strategy rests on four pillars. First, resource primacy. Strategic assets like lithium and oil are now matters of national survival. Second, securitization of borders. Cartels and migration are no longer law enforcement issues. They're classified as irregular warfare. Third, total exclusion of rivals. There's zero tolerance for Chinese economic penetration or Russian military assets in the hemisphere. And finally, transactional sovereignty. Sovereignty is no longer a right, it is a privilege granted only to nations that align with U.S. security interests. Now, let's look north. The U.S. is targeting Greenland to break Beijing's monopoly on rare earth minerals, specifically the Quanafeld mine. The tactic here involves threatening a protectorate status or using the Defense Production Act extraterritorially. This has caused massive friction with Denmark, leading to a shoot-first order against unauthorized foreign troops. As the White House stated, military options are always on the table. Moving south to Mexico, the U.S. has designated Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs. The justification? Fentanyl is now reclassified as chemical warfare. This allows for what analysts call a soft invasion, precision drone strikes and raids without Mexican consent. President Sheinbaum has threatened trade and border shutdowns. In the Caribbean, we see ideological strangulation. Cuba, the U.S. is enforcing a naval blockade to cut off Venezuelan oil supplies, aiming to cause grid collapse. For Colombia, the U.S. is applying hybrid threats and economic sanctions to isolate the Gustavo Petro administration, aiming for a political shift. How is the world reacting? The CRINK alliance, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, is pushing back. China has weaponized the supply chain, banning rare earth exports to starve the U.S. F-35 program. Meanwhile, Russia is playing a quid pro quo gambit. They're signaling acceptance of U.S. hegemony in the Americas, but only in exchange for U.S. withdrawal in Ukraine, effectively dividing the world into spheres of influence. Economically, this is accelerating de-dollarization. The BRICS bridge, a blockchain-based payment system, is rising to bypass SWIFT. And there's an energy reality check. While the political promise is to add 500,000 barrels of Venezuelan oil per day immediately, the industrial reality is that crumbling infrastructure requires nearly $90 billion in investment and 5 to 7 years to recover. Domestically, this is a constitutional stress test for the U.S. The Senate is invoking the War Powers Act to block unauthorized actions, and we're seeing civil unrest in cities like Philadelphia and Minneapolis. So, where is this heading? The most probable scenario, with a 65% likelihood, is a fortress hemisphere. We're looking at a tactical win for the US in the region, but a global economy fractured into dollar versus BRICS blocks, essentially Cold War 2.0. The U.S. is prioritizing regional control over global stability. In the search for absolute security, we have entered an era of absolute friction. That's it for today. Turtle out.